Go around toga, flaps 20. Positive rate, gear up. That's what goes through my head before every single landing. Right here, I'm landing at DFW Airport. I'm on my 3-6 left. Kind of a unique day, though, because, well, one, I'm not wearing my uniform. And two, this is an incredibly short flight from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Hello, my name is Darren. I'm a dad. I'm an airline pilot. I am a husband of a scientist. Follow along if you want to on a day trip I had that was a deadheaded from DFW to Tulsa and a ferry flight back on a 777-300. It is Thursday, October 31st, 10:59 a.m. Let's go fly an airplane. And you might be thinking, is Darren going to fly a GA airplane? He's not dressed in his uniform. I am not. I am going to go fly a 777, and I'm going to fly a 777 dressed just like this. How, Darren? How are you going to fly a 777 dressed just like this and not lose your job as an airline pilot? Great question, Darren. I'm doing it because it's a ferry flight, empty airplane. So I'm currently headed to DFW Airport to deadhead to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then and by the schedule, I'll be there 29 minutes, and then I will be ferrying a 777-300 back to Dallas. Why? Well, my airline has a big maintenance base in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the airplane is done with maintenance, so it's time for it to come back and fly revenue service. It makes no sense for them to schedule a revenue flight from Tulsa to Dallas, right? It's not logistically possible to do that because you don't really know when the plane will be out of maintenance, right? Oh, I hate drivers. They were both idiots. Oh. Anyways, they both raised their hands at me like I was doing something wrong. Anyways, so you can't pre-plan when a plane will be done on maintenance to then schedule a revenue flight. It's not really possible. And they don't want the plane to sit in there and do. Maybe they're having again. They're heading up there. Well, to schedule a flight back, even if they do an equipment substitution, they had a bunch of flight attendants up there and pilots up there to fly it back. It's easier just to ferry it back. So that's what we're doing. Today is a day off, and it is still the contractual month of October. So by the time you see this, I've already posted my video that I had finished the month of October with 105 hours. Well, now it'll be 110 hours and 15 minutes or so. I wanted to fly today. I am on reserve tomorrow, but I haven't flown in over a week, and this is an FO trip. So this is a better chance of me getting to fly the plane versus my normal relief pilot trip. Again, the captain could still fly it back, and I don't get to fly, but at least I'm in the pilot seat anyway. And so how this all came about? Well, this came into open time about 2 in the morning, and I was up, happened to glance at my phone, and I saw this silent notification. I looked at it and went, you know what? It's a day trip. I want to be home tonight to do trick or treating with my family, right? So I was able to pick this up, and I'll have plenty of time to get back to be home with my family. It is a 11:52 a.m. report time. I'm supposed to be done at like 3:15. I'm betting to be closer to 4 o'clock because they scheduled it. A computer scheduled this to me arrive in Tulsa, and then 29 minutes later, they head back to Dallas. That's not logistically possible for me to get off the airplane, go from the passenger terminal all the way over to the where the 777 is, which would be our maintenance area. Get that plane pre-flighted, clearance, and get it off the ground or off the gate anyway in 29 minutes. It's not possible. So we'll do the best we can. I'm betting it'll be closer to about 4 o'clock when we get back. As far as the pay goes, this is again I'm on reserve for the month of October and November. This is a OG trip, over guarantee trip. So at my airline, the minimum pay, keeping it simple anyway, it's not the right verbiage for the contract, but every day I go to work, I get a minimum of 5 hours and 15 minutes worth of pay, of credit anyway. The flight from Tulsa to Dallas is an hour. The flight back is an hour, maybe hour and 10. So I get $5.15 for just doing a deadhead flight and a ferry flight back. If it was just if I was getting paid actual time, it'd be harder to get pilots to come and want to do a 2-hour flight because it takes a lot to get for me to get ready to go to the airport, clear security, go to the gate. All that takes time. So if it was just 2 hours of pay, it'd be harder to get guys and pilots to do this on their days off, and it'd be a waste of a reserve. So it's a win-win for the company. Yes, they're paying me more than I'm actually working, but the flight gets covered, right? Um, I did request this for time and a half. That wasn't even they just I'm sure they just laughed at me. Uh, with my seniority being so low, getting time and a half flights is really hard. It has to do with either for me opportunity like last minute flight. I live close to the airport, or a special qualification. These run of the mill flights they typically go very senior. Um, I bid for some yesterday. Like today, they have a flight to Incheon, South Korea. Uh, right now, not the me pilots in my airline in my base are qualified to fly there. You have to have a what's called a Far East qualification to fly there. Not many people have it at my base, and the reason is whenever you get on the airplane, if the airplane isn't flying to that region, like the Far East, you can't get qualified. So there's pilots who've been on the airplane for 10, 15 years who have never, when they got on the plane wasn't flying to Asia at the time, so they never got the Far East qualification. So anyways, I have it because when I got on the airplane, we were flying to Asia. I got the Far East qualification right away. Anyway, I bid for the Incheon, South Korea flight for this morning. They had no one to cover it. Someone senior to me got it for time and a half. One day I'll be senior again, but for now I'm junior and I take what I can get. But yeah, let's go to the airport again. I'm not wearing my uniform. I don't have to wear my uniform if it's a non-revenue flight. So there's not a revenue flight. Um, there is some, danger per se. I don't have as many abilities or privileges when I'm not in uniform as far as going through security. Um, so I took out all my liquids out of my bag. If I have to stay the night somewhere, then I don't have to borrow stuff from the hotel. But beyond that, it's not that big of a deal. I'm much more comfortable in these clothes than I am in my uniform. I can just be Joe Schmo.
Parked my car, got into the very scary employee bus. Again, the drivers, in my opinion, aren't the safest. The roads are absolutely horrible, full of potholes, and the airport does not care. I've sent emails after email, and they go nowhere. Parked in Terminal D, even though I'm leaving for Terminal C because I know the plane is coming back to Terminal D. 777-300s almost always park in Terminal D, so I parked where I'm going to come back to, not where I'm leaving from. And this is also near KCM and Terminal D. I cleared KCM. I didn't get random. Surprise, surprise. And then once I was inside, I hopped on the Skylink back over to Terminal C. And I did check my boarding pass because I got upgraded to first class. It is a perk at my airline that non-revs can get in first class. And with my pilot union, we can get first class. We get first dibs at first class after all paying passengers on day of departure. So if you're a frequent flyer and you can use your upgrade points or miles, you can still go ahead to me. But day departure, it's up for grabs. Open seat. Again, it's just Tulsa. It's an hour flight. But I was happy to get a first class seat on the way up there. There's no meal, and of course, there's no alcohol when we're on duty, whether we're in uniform or not. Even if I was coming home from a trip on deadheading, I still can't have alcohol. Not that I would do it on the airplane anyway. But here's my boarding pass again. Everything's on time, and getting to 737 up there. I got seat 4A. Pretty short flight. We left we left on runway 35 left, which is a brand new runway in that they resurfaced the entire thing, so you can see all the fancy pavement there. Again, 35 left and 36 right are primarily departure runways, and then the 35 center and 36 left are the primary arrival runways. But up and away we go, and this is time lapse video, and then down we come into the giant metropolis that is Tulsa, Oklahoma. And actually, Tulsa downtown is a very nice downtown. I've had overnights down there before, and I was pleasantly surprised at how nice Tulsa is. I did see my captain. He was also in first class. He sat in 2A, I believe. I've flown with him before. Anyway, once to London. Super nice guy. But I'm spotting my plane over there. There is the tail of the 777-300. I'm pretty sure that's the one when I landed because I could just spot it. And indeed, it was the right tail number. Now, once we got to the gate, we deplaned. And this is the hard part of doing a ferry flight, finding out where we go next. Uh, Sometimes the mechanic meeting us at the gate, looking for people in uniform. This time we had to kind of ask operations to call the people and come get us. So we went down the stairs into a truck and got driven around the airport to the hangar. Um, it is what it is, right? This is the glamorous life of riding in the back of a Ford F-350 crew cab pickup. It's a different view, right, versus the normal view. Anyway, pulled around to the 777-300, and again, it was here for just a modification, no heavy maintenance. But there it is, and because I'm already outside, I decided to go ahead and do the pre-flight before going up the stairs. So while I was on the pre-flight, the captain was doing on the outside. The captain did the pre-flight on the inside of the airplane, including make sure all the galleys are locked down. He started loading the computer and all that stuff. Again, he's a super nice captain. I flew with him to London once. Very chill. He's has I think he has 1 year left at the company. Um, Pleasure to fly with. But here I am going up the stairs, and again, this is kind of rare for us to go into the 1L door. Most time we go into the 2L door. So I have never gone to the 1L door on a 777 before. So it's kind of coming in, and you go right into the galley area. But quick left turn and head up front and get myself situated. Once I get my bag stowed away, I put my small bag next to me, and it won't quite fit because the seat's not in the right position. So I'm like trying to stuff it there, but it's not going because I need to move the seat to the left. It's a power seat. And once I take a seat, sit down, and I move my seat to the left, and then I can move my bag into the correct position. Uh, this plane has something similar to the Airbus 321 series, in that the headset jack is up and behind us. I don't think it's the best way to place to put it, in my opinion. But I will say it's easier to plug my headset in on the 777 than it was on the Airbus. Those that are curious, I use a Bose ProFlight 2 headset. Great for airline pilots. Do not get it for general aviation. It will not protect your hearing enough. The 777 is very quiet. So is the Airbus. Most pilots on the 777 will take off the headsets above 18,000 feet. We're required to wear a boom microphone and headset below 18,000 feet. But once above it, it's pretty quiet, and we just use the speakers and the hand microphone to communicate with ATC. And then pop up my iPad, my EFB, keeping this little pretty case. It's blue because it's hard to lose. And we just Velcro it. It's heavy duty FAA approved Velcro right there, and that's where my EFB sits for the flight. And all was good, all was going well. Until we started doing our pre-flight, but I'll get to that in a second. Getting our clearance on 777-300, we do it via PDC, or actually a PDC on this plane, on this airport. But you see the clearance down there. That's on our center screen. And then I printed it. You can see it here on a piece of paper. We always print the clearance. And I'll go ahead and read the clearance to you for those of you who have no idea how a clearance reads. At the very top, it says Flight 9783/31. That's today's date, the 31st of October, Tulsa, DFW. Flight 9783, expounder is our transponder code, 5727. Our filing suffix is B77 Whiskey/Lima. Proposed time of 1900 Zulu at flight level 260. And you see what our dispatcher file below is filed K Tulsa to IRW to HOF to Dovum 6 arrival to DFW. If the FAA says no, you're actually going to go to Tulsa Airport to Sears to Yarns and then to Will Rogers. So a little bit of a change in the clearance. We have to insert that into the FMS. Below that, under remarks, it says no SID, meaning there's no departure procedure. Fly runway heading, get radar vectors, up to 15,000 feet. Level 260 in 10 minutes. Departure frequency 124.0. And before we get up and push back, we need to call 134.05. They have to find a slot for us to fit in because there's all kind of aircraft coming in south to DFW, right? So they have to find a hole for us so we can give us a time to get off the ground so we can pop up in the air and just slide in the traffic nice and smoothly. So it depends on the day. And on this day, unfortunately, it's a north flow into Dallas, and that makes things really complicated because we can't just go straight south to DFW. We have to go all the way west, then south, and then southeast to get to DFW. Pretty annoying. But before that, once we had the clearance, I looked down. I said, "Hey, Cap, I think we have a problem with the fuel. We had plenty of fuel on board, but the problem was it was in the wrong spot. We had 52,800 pounds of fuel in the center tank. Our books for as a pilot, well, we can have 3,000 pounds in the center tank, no more than that, unless the wings are full. The wings are nowhere near full. Each wing holds about 64,000 pounds of fuel. So that was an issue. We could either fill up the wings or we could defuel the center tank. And so we had to call operations, and they said, okay, we're going to go ahead and defuel the center tank. It took a long time to defuel the center tank, almost 45 minutes to defuel 53,800 pounds of fuel. This caused an issue because this plane was supposed to go to London uh, at like 5:15. They had to get a sub out of DFW, and instead this plane went to Miami. But eventually, we were all good to go. We closed the doors, armed the front two doors because we have some way to escape, right? It's just the two of us on board, and taxied out of Tulsa. Again, big long plane, and there are tillers on both sides of the airplane. It's policy at my airline that only the captain taxis. That's why I never taxi, and I am fine with it. But you can see the tiller on the left hand side of the aircraft. And in the real plane, we have cameras on the outside, one on each side of the tail and one on the front nose gear that we can use to make sure we are on center line. Because again, the tires, the front nose gear sits behind us. So you have to overshoot a lot where you are like out over the grass sometimes as in our seats, but as we're turning left to get onto a taxiway. New captains do have to get the grasp of it, how this big old plane taxis, right? But we went all the way down the taxiway, and once we got to the end, we did have an issue where somehow our takeoff performance numbers changed between the time we put them in and the time we got to the runway. We're always reviewing our systems and do checklists and talk. We review everything more than once, and so we're not sure where it changed, but it did change, and it's something we do right before takeoff. So we had to come to a stop. They had cleared us for takeoff, saying we need a few minutes, and I had to use the computer to request new takeoff numbers. And I can't show you on this thing here because it didn't work, but it'd be under the company screen you see there. But I'm just popping in TO2 takeoff, assumed temperature of 56 degrees. That means we are really derating the engines. TO2 is a 20% reduction, and 56 degrees means we're telling the engines to pretend as though it's 56 degrees outside. As a human being, when it's hot outside, you don't run as well, right? You don't perform as well. Same as the engines, we're just telling it to further derate because we don't need all that power, right? It's just two people on board. It's very common for us to derate the engines. It is extremely rare to do a full power takeoff in any jet, 777 or Embraer 145. It's common, my last whole time I've been an airpod, to do a reduced power takeoff. But captain lined the plane up on the runway, and he says, we already discussed this, that was my leg to DFW. Nice long runway in Tulsa, lined up, and you'll see a master caution here. It's an issue with the sim. I might have loaded the wrong runway on this departure. It's my fault. But we rev up to 50% N1. That's common. Once it's 50%, then we press the toga button and say toga, and the engines will then advance to toga power. Again, it is a reduced power takeoff, so it is not full power by any means. They are very, very derated engines. Saves on fuel, saves on noise. But here we go, up and up and away. Now, I will say, again, this is Flight Sim 2020. This model of the PMDG 777-300, it performed as though the real plane did. So as far as taking off and climbing out, the numbers I see here were very similar to the numbers I saw on the real plane. We were getting an easy 4,500 feet per minute climb out of 10,000 feet while doing over 320 knots in the climb. Initial climb is just crazy, right? It was a blast. Even that reduced power, taking off and just climbing out. Now it's going to climb two. Again, climb two is also a reduced power climb. But eventually, we made a left turn out toward that first fix, I believe, was Yarns. And you'll see how this is a big, long route to DFW. It is way longer than it has to be. But again, if we were a south flow, it'd be a very short flight. With north flow on DFW because the wind's out of the north. So you can see DFW to my left and how we're going way far west first. So we did climb up to 26,000 feet. Again, look at the climb performance. And this is how I saw it in the real plane. We're doing 318 knots and climbing at 4,600 feet per minute sustained, all the way up to 260. Right now we're going 230. That's very common. Eventually, I'll go up to 260. Now, once we get to the DFW area, we're going to be descending via an arrival. It's kind of like a highway in the sky. We're going right now on the Jovim 6 arrival. You can see it there. It serves runway 31 left and right, 35 left, center and right, 36 left and right. Again, you can see up in the top left-hand side, it says the same thing, and this is Lone Star approach. That's a new change. They just changed this from regional approach. But we're coming in over the Hoff intersection. Then we're going to Bebin, and it gives the distance between all of them. Tipton, Then county is the first restriction, 290 knots between 503.00 and 240. Then JR between 230 and 200. Then we're going to Victory, that is between 180 and 15,000 feet and 280 knots. Dovum between 15 and 13, speed 270. Missile, 240 knots at 12,000 feet. Siler, 210 knots at 12,000 feet. Then Kaboom and Fuel. Now, that is from Hoff, but you'll see we can come in from a Hanker, Turkey, Madano, also up here, iBake and Claw. So all those initial fixes all feed in to one arrival, and then we're doing like a left downwind for the north runways. Yeah, it's complicated, but I promise you it's pretty easy, and these modern airplanes make it really easy to descend. I'm using auto brake 2. That's a nice mild auto brake setting, and I'm going to go ahead and use flaps 30. 30 and 25 are most are normal landing flaps. 25 is more common on the 200. 300 uses normally flaps 30. Now, before we descend on the arrival, I will, and we do in the actual airplane, verify every single fix and the speed and altitude to make sure they are correct in the computer. It's garbage in, garbage out. It's extremely rare to find a mistake, but again, these charts are updated on my iPad, they're also updated on the airplane, and sometimes there could be a typo, right? It's a lot of data. This is a whole world database on my iPad and on my FMS in my airplane. But the way we descend is called VNAV. You see VNAV path on my FMA up there, so it's set to descend. But right now, it's set for 260. I can't. It's not having nothing else lower set. And you can see the amber FMC message that's basically telling me that it's going to tell me that I can't descend because I have no lower altitude set. So once I go through and verify all the altitudes, I will then put in the bottom altitude, which was 12,000 feet, and it'll be sped up here. But once I have 12,000 feet set up, the plane will start descending and slowing down to make all of those gates. Now, every now and then, we have a big tailwind, and it'll need help. It'll say drag required. So I'll have to put out some kind of drag, normally the speed brakes, to help the plane slow down while going down. Modern airplanes are very slick. They don't like they have very little drag. So sometimes with a big tailwind, we have to add drag to descend and still make the speeds and crossing restrictions. Now, it gets even crazier in the wintertime as we descend and we're in icing conditions, because once you have on the wing anti-ice and engine anti-ice, it makes things more complicated because engine anti-ice has higher revs, and so it can be even more harder to slow down and go down. Anyways, eventually we were given vectors to runway 36 left. I've shot this approach well over 1,000 times. I know this approach very, very well, but I still brief it as though I've never seen it before because, again, charts change and procedures change. So even though we're cleared for a visual approach, it is smart, and almost every airline pilot does this. It's recommended by my airline to load an approach in the FMS so we can make sure that we're lined up the correct runway at the correct airport. Every now and then you see news reports about airliners landing at the wrong airport. I can almost guarantee you they didn't put an approach into the box. It is extremely rare. I think in my entire career, only once did I not load an approach. That was in to Detroit Metro Airport, where they asked us to land on a runway that had no approach. And it was VFR, so we did it. It was my old Eagle days. Anyways, coming in on 36 left, we're extremely light. And that came in handy because there was an aircraft actually right in front of us, and they were about 700 feet below us, which is maybe 2.5 miles, 2.25 miles. And that's closer to the normal. It's still safe, but normally we're 1,000 feet apart and about 3 miles apart. Well, we were closer on this day, and they told us to slow down to our final approach speed pretty early, which thankfully we were light. So my reference speed was 125. My approach speed is 5 knots higher. It's 130. That's very slow for a 777-300 because we're still landing over 500,000 pounds, right? Normally on a normal landing, my approach speed is like 155, 160. So thankfully we're light. It wasn't an issue. But as we're coming in, we're like, well, crap. We might have to go around in VFR conditions, but thankfully the plane ahead of us, they were able to land and clear the runway, and we were about maybe 1,000 feet above ground when they cleared the runway, and it wasn't an issue for spacing. But we were always prepared for a go around, and before on every single approach in my head, and sometimes I say it out loud, I say the go around profile. Why? Because it's very rare to go around. I go around like once every 2 or 3 years in the actual airplane, but I want to make sure I do it right? So I always say the go around profile in my head, and many captains I fly with will also say it because again, they don't go around that much either. But coming in 36 left, flaps 30, beautiful day, winds down the runway. I made a decent landing. It wasn't perfect. Light airplanes can be kind of hard to settle. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. But the mains touched the ground, and then the nose sank faster than I thought it would. And I haven't landed in a month, so it's a little different. But landed, taxi to the gate, and it was kind of nice to walk out of a 777 and go right into the terminal and out the exit, not have to clear customs. But headed out, got on the employee bus, got to my car, and now it's time for the debrief.
So yeah, it is now 5:28 p.m. Driving home. Again, it was an easy trip. Take nothing that I'm saying as me complaining. I am not complaining. But we're later than planned, right? It took a long time. I think I set the timer at 48 minutes to get 50,000 pounds of fuel defueled from the center tank. It started going quickly, then as it went down, it started having to pull out more, and it just took a long time to pull out. As far as the actual flight went, once we got to go, it was fine. We did, an unfortunate thing today was one, the plane was supposed to go to Miami, it was supposed to go to London right away at 5:15. It's 5:30. But then it's North Flow in Dallas. And when it's North Flow, it messes everything up. I'm sure I'll show you the routing, right? We had to go all the way west and then down to come south. And it just took a long time. 36 left approach, my landing, and we did not see the aircraft ahead of us on our final, and we were told to slow to our final approach speed right away, and then they told the plane ahead of us, plane minimal time on the runway. Apparently, we were close. We were not impending doom close. They were about 700 feet below us, which, normally they're 1,000 feet below us on a glide path, which is about a mile away. So we were closer than normal. Thankfully, we were a ferry flight, and we were super, super light. The ref speed was 125 at flaps 30, meaning my V approach was 130. So super light. Normally, we'd be a good 20 knots faster. So by being super light, it did help us slow down a lot, so we weren't eating up the guy ahead of us. But I appreciate my coworker because they landed and got off the runway expeditiously. I came in and I haven't landed in a month. I flared about 30 feet, later than normal because I knew I was really light. And so I floated a bit, mains touched nice and smoothly, but then my nose just dropped faster than I expected it to. But it's only us two on board, not a big deal. Got to the gate very quickly and parked. And then here's what's funny. So we were on board, and we're the only two people on board. And so we had to arm the emergency exit doors, right? We armed 1L and 2L. We never walked through 1L or 2L on the 777 at my airline. We always boarded through 1L and 1R. We had to arm. We never go through those doors, except for today, we boarded through 1L. So when I disarmed the doors, I went outside to look for the gate agent through the 1L door, and I don't see a jet bridge. So I went back to my seat, started packing up. Back again, I said, there's no, oh, wait a minute. They're at the 2L door. Went back to 2L, there's the gate agent. Said, thumbs up to him. I'd already disarmed the front two doors. Opened the door, and then they were preparing to go to Miami with late. The plane was clean, but had no catering on board, nothing on board. So it took a while for them to clean and get the plane catered to go. But I was able to input my landing into the system. So I get home, and on this video, I will show you when my landings expire. As I came into work today, they expired on the 24th of November, which is a bad thing because I have plans. So hopefully I can get another week or two out of my landing before they expire. I think I will, because I landed a month ago. So depending when I landed about one time before that. But I am on reserve tomorrow. So this trip, what did it pay? Well, by my back of the napkin math, it paid $1,502. Here's the number here. So my hourly rate is $515 times $286.26. I do get per diem, call it 5 hours. I get the domestic pay rate. I think it's $280 an hour, $13 per diem. No international pay because even though Oklahoma's weird, it is not another. It does not involve flying over water. So I was happy to fly today. I like flying. So And I was talking to the captain again. I flew with him to London. Super nice guy. He has 1 year left. And now I'm headed home for Halloween. It's 5:33 now, and I should be home just in time to throw a burrito in my stomach and do trick-or-treating with my kids. Great day indeed. Have a great day, and I'll send it back to Darren in the studio to wrap it all up. Super easy day. I got to have breakfast with my family, go to the airport, get a first class seat, head up to Oklahoma, fly an airplane back to Dallas, and home in time to have trick-or-treating with my kids and my wife. And I made some pretty good money along the way. You know, $1,500 is nothing to sneeze about, right? And while I don't like day trips, it was a nice change of pace. You know, I came from a cubicle to do this job. And I don't ever forget where I came from, right? I'm very fortunate to get to do what I do. On my desk, I keep two things. And if you're a long-time follower of mine or subscriber, you know what I keep on my desk, right? One is, I'll show you a close-up picture of this, but it's the award I got from my last cubicle job. You know, this is December of 2006. At this point, my boss knew I was quitting. I had started flight training May of that year, and I would study during my lunch breaks. And she knew I was quitting, and she said, hey, just give me a heads up when you're leaving. And even though I knew I was quitting and they knew I was quitting, I still did my job to the best of my ability, right? And they gave me this award right before I left. I quit that job in March of 2007. So, you know, reminder where I came from and where I left. And then I also keep my very first pay statement. I have to block this because people are weird on the internet, my employee number, but this is my very first pay statement as an airline pilot. And I get a lot of flack on my videos on YouTube for putting how much I make as an airline pilot. And although I make a lot of money now, I did not get into this career for the money. On my very first paycheck for half a month of work, I know it without looking, was $1,383.78. $1,383.78. Now, you might be thinking, well, Darren, that's a good paycheck, right? Yeah, that's half a month of work. I made more than that today than I made in the entire, oh Lord, half month back in 2007. I'm very fortunate, and I keep this on my desk to stay humble, right? I put my pay on the screen so that people that want to do this career have a truly plain Jane, no craziness picture of what you can earn in this career. I tell you about my time at home and when I leave for the airport and come back, so you can see as an airline pilot what times I'm away from home. Because there's a huge misconception that as an airline pilot, I am gone all the time. And that's just not true. At least for me in my situation. Again, I'm very fortunate to live 10 miles from my base. People ask, why did I pick my airline? Because way before I started flying, I lived 8 miles from my base, a little closer, right? I picked my airline because the biggest hub for the whole operation is close to my house, right? Now, I understand that some people can't do that, right? If you live in Des Moines, Iowa, there's no airline base there. You're gonna have to commute, and you will be away from home more than I will. But for me, my current gig, my current airline, it works for me and my family. And we're very happy and fortunate to be able to do what we can do. But that's my day trip. Different kind of video. Again, didn't have to wear a uniform. Hope you enjoyed my video. If you want to, like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate all of your support. Have a great day. And as always, thank you for stopping by.